Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Talking Locs podcast with Locitude. This is the Everyday People with Locs series, and I'm your host, Ade Balogun. This episode is produced by Xavage Media. Today, we will be discussing locks and health. Our guest is Dr. Toyin Oshinowo, a phenomenal woman making waves in the technology industry, a sickle cell warrior, and of course, a lockhead. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Hi, Toyin. Welcome to the second episode of Everyday People with Locs. I'm very happy that you've agreed to do this, and today we're going to be talking about locks and health. Can you please go ahead and tell us your name and a little bit about yourself, just to kick off this episode?
So my name is Toyin Oshinowo. I have a doctorate in engineering from Warwick University. I live in Lagos. I work for Kuda Bank and I have Locs. I've had them for, I think it's 11, 12 years. I can never remember the actual day, to be fair. And I live with sickle cell, so sickle beta thalassemia.
Okay, all right, thank you. I think the very first question I always like to ask is, why did you even choose to lock your hair in the first place?
I've always had a love-hate relationship with my hair. Um, at the time, I was living in the UK full-time, and I had transitioned from relaxed hair to an afro, and I'd had that for 7 years. But it was always really stressful every month, taking the hair out, washing it, and putting it back in two-strand twists. I mean, for 7 years, I pretty much rocked two-strand twists. And I have a best friend. Her name is Stacy. She's from Jamaican descent, and we were always talking about, the fact that locks are beautiful. Oh, I'm not sure whether I want to take the plunge type thing. And we went to a black hair beauty show in London, and they had styled like locks and stuff, and I just kept on staring at these people. I just thought, this hair is just beautiful. I mean, and I'm tired of looking like white people with straight hair, or trying to make my hair assimilate to what everybody else wants. And so I kind of was toying around with the idea of locking for roughly about a year before I decided, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to do it. And if I don't like it, I can always take it out like 3-4 months, or just cut all my hair off, because the hair was that damaged, because I used to press it with a flat iron at one point. So yeah, I just decided to do it. And weirdly enough, my friend Stacy, she actually got her hair done a month before I did.
Does she still have locks?
Yeah, she still has her locks.
Oh,
She
that's
still has her
awesome.
locks.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, since this conversation is very much health related, I think it's important and also emotional. So again, I really thank you for agreeing to do this. For most of us in Nigeria, we're very familiar with what SS means. You kind of already from growing up know that if you have both parents and both of them have the S genotype, it's possible for them to have a child that is sickle cell. So
Yeah.
this is something that's very familiar. But for people who may not know what it is, can you just give us like a brief explanation of what this condition means?
So sickle cell anemia is a hereditary blood disorder. In essence, what happens is the red blood cells of somebody who lives with sickle, from time to time, they change shape from your typical round donut shape to the shape of a sickle. and the red blood cells become quite sticky. So what tends to happen with that is when somebody living with sickle cell is going through a crisis, that's what we call these episodes. The red blood cells have sickled and they get stuck in blood vessels. Now, the human body is a wonderful machine. What it does is that if it recognizes that there's something wrong, i.e., there's a blockage somewhere caused by these sickle cells, the way it responds is to create pain. So people living with sickle have bouts of pain, which usually can only be resolved by drinking a crap load of water to try and flush out the system, but also they need pain medication. And we're not talking the paracetamol of the world. We're talking tramadol, morphine, Dilaudid, like things like that. So it's a chronic condition. There right now is, well, they're in the early stages of finding a cure. I think it's still a situation where we have to wait and see. Going back into the genetics of it, so sickle cell usually is a combination. It comes from a combination of the parents. So for a normal person who doesn't have any sickle cell, they're typically known as AA. For somebody who's carrying the sickle cell trait, they can be AS. And then for somebody who has full-blown sickle cell, they're SS. But even within that, there are different types of sickle cell. So you have SS, which is the one that's more common in Africa, and a lot of Africans are well versed with those individuals. You have SC, which is more common in the Caribbean, but you have variants. You have people living with SC sickle type in Africa as well. And then there's my type, which is sickle beta thalassemia, which is actually a mixture of sickle cell and beta thalassemia, which is another condition. Now that variant is more common in Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, and not that common in West Africa. Which is why when my parents got together, they didn't know what I was until they traveled to the United Kingdom and they kind of figured out what the problem was. So yeah, those are the three main types.
Right. So yeah, before we did this, before we decided to start recording, I kind of, know you personally, and I've known you for a few years now, but I kind of realized that, let me Google you and find out what is out there. So a few things that I'm already familiar with, but it got me wondering. I do know you write a blog that addresses the sickle cell condition, but you named this blog Dr. Foxy Cleo. And I'm just curious as to, I know you're a doctor, albeit I'm not a medical doctor, so I do know that that's where doctor comes from, but it's interesting. Why Foxy Cleo?
So Foxy Cleo came out during my uni days when I had my afro. I used to go out clubbing with this massive afro, and you know that my hair is full, so it was ridiculous. And I would go out clubbing with my afro, and then there was a t-shirt party that we were invited to when they were like, okay, you need to put a nickname on your shirt. And this was around the time of Austin Powers and Beyonce's character, Sexy Cleopatra. And so somebody was just like, Foxy Cleo. And I was like, okay, that kind of works. So that was my nickname. And then when I got my doctorate, it was like, okay, well, let's just apply the title to it. So that's where Dr. Foxy Cleo has come from.
Okay, it's been interesting. I haven't read much on the blog, but I do know that I did take a quick glance, and I feel like over the years, you've kind of put out your personal experience, and it kind of helps people understand what the condition is and how you cope, and hopefully help somebody out and cope with it. I really related to that because Locitude in itself started as a blog as well. So I do understand that writing can be therapeutic, and sometimes you just don't know who you're reaching when you do that. So yes, with your hair. So it seems like I was hoping to hear that, maybe uh, there was, um, if it was intentional from a health perspective, why you chose to lock your hair. But it seemed like that decision came from just loving locks for what they are, like recognizing it and deciding to have them. So my question is, now that you've had locks for 11, 12 years, does it play any part or does it have any effect on your condition?
So when you do something, when you start something, and it might not necessarily be your intent, but when you start something and then you then experience the advantages of it, you then kind of in yourself decide, you know what, this was the best decision that I made. And you know what, it helps me in so and so and so way. So let me try and break that down. So there was a time where I was in the hospital pretty much every month. This was in the United Kingdom. And for any black girl, right, when you go into a hospital and you are stuck there for a week, 2 weeks, maybe even a month, at the time that you're sick, you don't really care about your appearance or how matted your hair has gotten, because obviously you're sick. But then when you then start feeling better, you then start seeing what is wrong. Oh, I've not moisturized my legs in so and so days. Mm-hmm. Now it just basically looks like as if, there's snow on my feet. Oh, I haven't done my nails. Oh, I have not combed my hair. Babe, there were times where after a hospital visit, you're thinking about putting yourself together and you're just thinking, oh my God, now I have to wash this hair and I have to retwist. Mm-hmm. Or I could be unfortunate to have a crisis when my hair has been undone. And then a week later, I'm having to then deal with unmatting my hair, washing it, conditioning it, and retwisting. The best thing about locks, if it's untidy, that's the style. If it hasn't been washed in 2 months, that's the style. Like, it's and I always find it fascinating when people tell you that they think locks are high maintenance. It's not high maintenance. Like, if I decide that I don't even want to twist my hair for 6 months, I can actually do that. Mm-hmm. It's just my OCD will not allow. But like, the fact that I don't have to worry about my crowning glory and know that my crowning glory is still going to be fabulous, regardless of how bad I feel, it actually does help. Mm-hmm. It really does. There are a lot of things that I do, because sometimes when you're hooked up to medication, right, you do some weird stuff. I remember my boyfriend telling me that I was sleeping with my legs in the air. And at one point, he was afraid to touch me because he didn't know whether he would startle me or whatever. But one of the things that he noticed that I do is I comb my hand through my hair when I'm asleep. Mm-hmm. And I take that back to when I was a child. There's this thing I used to do where the in-between of my fingers, I used to love the way linen would feel in between. It was kind of like a comfort mechanism when I was ill. Because when you're younger, you can't necessarily communicate that you're in pain. So sometimes I wouldn't get my pain medicine on time because either the doctors or the nurses couldn't decipher what I was in pain. It was that my childhood, for lack of a better term, even conscious on payments. To the point where apparently I was slapping him in the middle of the night. And he was just like, okay, I'm just gonna leave her be. Let's give her some more space. So it is kind of like a comfort blanket. Like I'll touch it, I'll run my fingers through my hair, you know. It just gives me a sense of comfort. I don't think I'll ever cut them off totally. Maybe I'll cut them short because now they're getting ridiculously long. But like, I don't think I'll ever cut off my locks.
All right, that's good to hear. I think I'm personally in between on that decision. I've had mine for, I think, 11 years now. Yeah, 11 years. And I keep telling myself I'll cut it, but it's not happened yet. I don't know what's going to happen. So you did say that your hair basically provides some comfort in the time of crisis. And you spoke a little bit about what it's like to maintain it and how, for every time you don't have to do your hair, it is the style. And I completely relate to that because unlike you, I personally am the opposite. I really love my hair when it's rough, and it's unfortunate I kind of have to wash it and retwist it so that it doesn't get all matted up. But I know you like to get your hair done more frequently. So in terms of maintenance and just saying, I also listened to a recent, well, not so recent, it's been a few years. I just recently listened to the interview you did with Wana, and anybody who would like to know more about what the sickle cell condition feels like, I encourage you to listen to that. It was a very good interview. But you spoke about the expense related to, having a chronic illness. And I do know that it is nothing comparable to the amount of money you need to maintain your hair. But it would be interesting to see what your opinion is on, do you think your hair is one last thing you even have to worry about financially compared to other financial bills that you have?
So I'm always fascinated by people who spend 300,000 naira on a wig or a weave. I think over Christmas, the fascination was two straights.
One straight hair. I saw a lot of.
And it took me forever to actually understand what the heck that was, So, more recently, I've had to start blood transfusions, right, in Nigeria. And when you are spending 500,000 every quarter on a blood transfusion just to survive, you start thinking about your life and you start thinking, so am I then going to find 300,000 naira to buy a weave or a wig? That just doesn't make sense to me at all. I mean, I'm not going to expose your prices for fucking, but let me just safely say that getting my locks done at your establishment has been the most cost-effective I've ever anywhere else. And it does help. It does help in the fact that it's an expense that even if I didn't have a job, because for the longest time I didn't have any formal employment, obviously because of lockdown and all of that. But even with that, I could still afford to get my hair done. And that is actually one of the best things about this hairstyle. Now, my hair is a bit much. I could actually do it myself. I do remember in lockdown, there was an episode where I decided I was going to wash my hair and you had to come and help me style because I had to do something, an event. And I spent 2 hours washing my hair myself. And I vowed never to do that again. Because my hair is really long and it's very thick and it's very heavy. And so for me, it's almost like a spa day whenever I come and get my hair done at Locitude. To be honest, it's one of the So when you have a chronic illness, one of the things that you have to learn to do is self-love, because the one of the key things that we tend to do as human beings is that we're very harsh on ourselves. And if there is something that makes us different from everyone else, for some weird reason, us as human beings then become even more critical of ourselves. So one of the things I do is I and that's part of the reason why I get my hair done every month. It's like therapy. It's a spa day for me. I'm going to pamper myself at a highly affordable price, and afterwards I leave, my hair smells good, I can feel like, the wind on my scalp, and like all is well with the world. So the fact that I'm able to self-love myself, have a little bit of a spa day, have my head massaged, at a reasonable cost, I think it's fabulous. Fabulous.
I'm sitting here just smiling, and well, we try, and I think it is very important that we are happy to maintain the quality of service that we provide. And this actually just came to mind because I started this podcast generally on a whim in January, and just before, so I was only going to do 7 for the 7 days that we were closed, and I was going to see how it went. And now we've kind of started the second season, and just before I published or before I recorded the 7th one from the first season, I got a call from a customer who had introduced a lady called Helmi to us, and we had been doing her hair for a while. I didn't even know that she had sickle cell, but she passed, unfortunately. Just at the end of December. And Obi called me to tell me how what you just said, that Locitude was one of the places that Helena used to look forward to come to, because it was like her time out. It was a time where she felt normal and she interacted. And so that last episode was dedicated to her, and I completely even did not relate it to this conversation we're having. But you just saying that reminds me that, it's a service that we provide, and for some people it's just more than a service, and you're giving us a reason to continue to be in business. So that warms my heart. Okay, so before we start to get too emotional, let's talk about let's try and talk about this from I know this is really about health, but I always feel that, or with this series, when I'm talking to everyday people that have locks, I just try to infuse some other parts of life into the discussion, that kind of takes away from the main topic. You did mention that there was some time that you didn't have work. I know you're female. A lot of people don't understand our hair as African women because we do all sorts of things to it. And I think that from what you've said so far, it appears that finding work, your health has more leaning on whether you get it or not. But have you ever been in any situation where you are perceived different because of your hair, and they feel like, oh, you can't? You did mention in one interview that you worked in some banks, but did anybody look at you and say, hey, you have to get rid of that hair for you to work at a bank? It's against our code of conduct or anything like that.
So this is where I feel in a lot of ways we're very backwards in Africa. During my interview at a bank, the comment was made, I seem bohemian.
What does that even mean?
Well, you know when you're talking to somebody, right? And you don't really, you hear it, but you don't really understand what's being said until maybe like a day after. And then you're like, what the heck did that guy just say to me, type thing, So in the interview, right, the lady that was also interviewing me, was a panel of like 5 people or something ridiculous. She then jumps in and is like, no, she's not bohemian. She doesn't look bohemian. And then the guy then pipes up again, and he's like, yeah, but she seems fairly unstructured. I mean, babe, based on her CV and, her appearance. And I looked at this guy and I was like, okay. And he's like, would you be able to work in a structured environment? And I think because I had the mentality of, I really don't want to work here, but I need money, I basically went, you would be frustrated anywhere, be it a company with structure or no structure. It's about your reaction to it. So I don't really see how me being bohemian or unstructured has any issue. And the guy was silent, and the women were silent too. And I thought, you know what? These people are not going to want to give me a job, so screw it. Let me leave. And I got an offer letter, I think, was it less than 24 hours after that interview. Now, when I actually joined the bank, it was hilarious to me because I would have loads of women from different departments come and ask me about my hair. Ask me if it was wool, ask me if, was it real? Was it my own hair? I think I'd had my hair then for like 5 years or something like that. And they would ask me some questions or whatever. And the head of my department one day, I think she was trying to befriend me. But my problem is that if you're trying to befriend somebody and you're in charge of that person, it's not genuine. So you calling me to your office to sit down and have a conversation with you, I'm not really seeing the genuinity in that. So she then goes, that I had to give special permission for your hair. I was like, what?
Okay.
I was like, yes, that, I had to make sure that I got special permission because, typically in the rules, you're not allowed to have locks. And I'm like, okay, you want a medal? Like, my philosophy with employers that don't want to hire people who have locks is the person with locks doesn't want to work there. If you can't see the person for what they're actually contributing towards your organization is, and you're hung up on their appearance, then frankly, you're focusing on the wrong things. The problem with Nigeria is obviously everybody's looking for a job. So it's a personal decision. I do know that I interviewed with another girl who had locks, but she wanted to get the job so badly that she cut them off the day before the interview. So people are entitled to make those choices. I think for me, it's somewhat easier for me to be blasé because I had the doctorate. And one thing I realized, once you have doctor in front of your name, people will bow down for you anyhow. It's ridiculous.
I better go and get a doctorate.
Man, don't do it so you were so guided for a while. But I think having the doctorate also gave me a bit more confidence in myself because the whole thought process of getting a doctorate is you decide a hypothesis and you prove it and disprove it. And you pretty much, you get help from people, but you pretty much do that on your own. So once you get to a point in your life where you have achieved something of that nature, you know that nothing is impossible. You can move forward and you have a lot more self-confidence in certain areas. Not all, but in certain areas. So, yeah, I just didn't care.
Right. I said this in the last episode that I recorded when I was talking with Chinedum about Locs and the corporate world. I personally feel that the ideologies we have are the leftover effect of colonialism. And in Nigeria, you hardly see any white people walking around. So I don't even understand why we have these rules that stop people from expressing themselves in their genuine way. It is the most ridiculous thing to have an African, for it to be okay for an African woman in Africa to wear Indian hair, but not wear her own hair. It doesn't make any sense. And I do hope that what we're doing, somebody out there picks it up, and people in human resources and all of this multinational and corporate industries begin to realize that you can't keep hiding who you are. There is nothing wrong with kinky hair. There's nothing wrong with locked hair.
Yeah.
It's one thing to demand that we keep our hair clean and neat and, make sure that our physical appearance is acceptable, and not just saying, putting in a book that you can't wear your hair the way you were born. Makes no sense at all.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay. So since we kind of debated off topic a little bit, I might as well just ask. I can imagine that for somebody with a chronic condition, relationships are difficult. But do you feel that your hair even makes that situation any more difficult, or is it more positive and people just kind of get gravitated towards you because you have locked hair and you look, for lack of a better description, and according to your last interview, a bohemian?
Let me see. So I remember when I had my locks for roughly 4 or 5 years. I think this all ties into when I moved back to Nigeria. But what even happened? I had a friend come to the house. It's the first time that she had seen me with locks. And she kept on asking me, so what happens if your husband now tells you that you should cut your locks? And I looked at her like as if she actually was possessed. Because for me, it's like, I've had locks for roughly 5 or 6 years now. If you didn't know I had locks and I wanted to keep my locks, then don't get with me. If you think that you can wake up one morning and tell me to cut my locks and it's not my personal decision, leave me alone. I don't need you. Having a chronic illness, one of the things that you pretty much learn how to do very early is be selfish. Because at the end of the day, when you're having a crisis and the reasons why you had a crisis because you decided to put yourself in a situation that was stupid, and I've done that several times, the only person who's going to go through that pain is you. Everybody else can sympathize, everybody else can carry to the hospital or whatever, but the only person that's dealing with that pain is you. So you learn to be selfish. You learn to make choices that benefit you. And then with time, when you're in a relationship, you learn to lose control, because that's the other thing. You need to have a sense of control of yourself. So when you're in a relationship with somebody who's worth it, you learn to let go of the reins a little and let them in. But I've never had a situation where somebody has said they don't want to date me because I have locks. In fact, it's been the opposite. I did have somebody tell me that the fact that I have locks means that I have a certain character type, which is not, I wouldn't say normal, but is unique. Mm-hmm. And so he found that attractive. But no, if you don't want to get with a woman that has locks, then don't meet her when she has locks and then ask her to cut it. It just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't.
Yeah, I completely understand that, and I know that I did have an ex where his mother kind of told me that my hair was not befitting of somebody of my caliber, but it was such a contradiction because I own a business where I help other people join the madness. And so I had to kind of start to defend myself to say, hey, I've done some pretty fantastic things with locked hair, and that's not because my hair is locked, but because of who I am. So you need to start to see people for who they are and not their physical appearances. You can't judge a book by its cover, and this cover is actually inherently African, so why are we even judging ourselves by locked hair? Okay, so just moving on a little bit. I did ask the last person what if there were any inconveniences about his hair, and it was interesting that he had a lot of interesting things to tell me, which I wasn't expecting. So in terms of, you've spoken that there's a lot of benefit that your hair brings you, But at this point, do you say there's any inconvenience towards having locked hair? Are there times where you're like, you know what, I would rather just not even have this hair in the first place?
So that incident that I mentioned about me spending 2 hours washing my hair, that's one. That's the most recent one. Other situations, so my hair's really long. I think it's now almost to my bum. And if you don't tie your hair back at night, you could wake up in the middle of the night and two things would have happened to you. One, it is so hot because your hair has managed to accumulate around your neck, so you're sweating like a banshee type situation. Or two, you've moved around so much that your hair is literally strangling you. I've had that incident happen to me before, and it wasn't real, it was not a pleasant sensation, I won't lie to you. So I have had that situation. The weight, I have a very strong neck. I'd like to believe I have a very strong neck. The weight of this hair, they don't tell you when you first of all start that the weight is actually significant. And I'm sure it's adding to the kilograms whenever I stand on the bathroom scale.
I feel you.
It's adding at least 2-3 kilos.
Oh,
you know.
Trust me, I'm with you on that one. Whatever I weigh, it's minus 2 kilograms.
Because it is heavy. You don't realize how heavy it is. But I do like the length because when it was really short and I couldn't put it into a bun on the top of my head, it was annoying in the fact that it was all over the place. It was in my face. I'd have to wear hair bands to keep the hair out. Sweating during the day was always a problem because there was just so much hair everywhere. So I do appreciate the length that it is now. But the major thing is weight. It's heavy. It's really heavy.
I hear you. But so far so good. You feel that the benefits kind of outweigh the inconveniences that you have, and you rather just still stick with them a little bit more.
Oh yeah, I mean, worst case, what I would do is I will cut my hair shoulder length. I don't think I'm ever going to get rid of my locks, ever, unless my hair starts falling out. But
yeah, I'm very happy that we can have a very genuine conversation about, locks in general and how it relates to your health. And I think we're almost getting to the end of this episode, sadly, because I always enjoy talking to you, Toyin, and I'm looking forward to another time where we can sit down and actually in person, corona-free environment, and drink wine. So I have it's been a very long time. I have one last question for you, and I think we've actually done a good job because we've been speaking for about half an hour now. It's time flies so quickly. So if there's anyone out there who has a health condition, possibly chronic, and is considering locks as a new lifestyle as a hair choice as well, what would be your advice?
Find a loctician that you can trust, and just take the plunge. It's actually the best thing for your hair. It really, really is. I think it will take a lot of. Everybody has things that they have to do, like in their day to day. The wonderful thing about locks is you wake up in the morning, you take off your scarf. Yeah, you could put like a little stuff in there to moisturize. I had to put shea oil on today because, dude, the weather here is dry. But apart from that, it's pretty much a get up and go type of hairstyle. It's cost effective. You should find a loctician that you can trust, definitely. Because ideally you would want somewhere to go to rather than you doing it yourself. Treat it like a spa day. Treat it as self-love, But if I were to recommend a hairstyle to any Black person with a chronic illness, I would recommend locks, definitely. or shave your head. It's one or the other. No in between.
I almost feel that. So I've been tempted a few times, like when we those of us that have stuck with it for such a long time, there's always that temptation to say, I want to cut my hair, I'm done, I don't want any of this. But I feel like if I shaved my head, I might be required to actually go and reshave it every 2 weeks or something if I wanted to make it look a certain way.
Like to maintain it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in a way, I still feel that locking your hair is still the most stressless, because if you decide not to do anything for 6 weeks, you're good. That's the style.
It looks like how it looks. Like, I would say that it's untidy, right? My twin sister would look at me and be like, "Oh, this is your hair. It's normal." So I'm just like, I would just do me. Okay.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Toyin. This has been another refreshing conversation. A lot of the things we've spoken about have been personal. I applaud you for being so open about your condition and having people learn about it and having people understand it. And I applaud you as well for going through everything that you've gone through your entire life so bravely. So thanks for honoring us on the Talking Locs podcast and this new series, Everyday People with Locs. I feel like there's so many words that I have in this podcast, like Talking Locs, Everyday People with Locs, with Ade Balogun of Locitude and Toyin Oshinowo. This has been a fantastic conversation. So thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again.
Definitely. And thank you. You have no idea how much joy you have brought to my life. Cost-effective joy every month. You have no idea. So you keep doing what you're doing. I'm very proud of you, Ade. Yeah. I'm actually really proud of you.
I'm so happy to be of service. Yeah.
Oh.
All right then. Have a great one.
You too, love.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Talking Locs podcast with Locitude. It has been such a pleasure being your host, and my name is again Ade Balogun. And thanks to our producer, Xavage Media. Please don't forget to follow us on social media. We are at Locitude, LOCITUDE, and you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Also, for more interesting podcast episodes on Everyday People with Locs, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. We are currently on Google, Stitcher, Apple, and Spotify podcast. We have exciting episodes lined up, and the next one is going to be Locs in relation to aging. The conversation is going to be interesting and exciting at the same time. I did learn a lot from it, so I guess what I'm saying is stay tuned, and don't forget to keep it locked with an attitude. Bye.